Hey everybody, Austin Hill Shaw here, founder of Creativity Matters and author of The Shoreline of Wonder with another edition of Creativity and Bay Area Innovation. Creativity and Bay Area Innovation. And today we're going to be talking about the weather factor, the weather, okay? And in order to get into this, I want to kind of give you a little sense of one of my first memories of coming to the Bay Area as an 18-year-old young man at the time. So I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and I grew up in the same house. I was there, until I was 18. And so I was very familiar with the type of flora and fauna that was out there, the type of vegetation that you would see. And it was a limited palette because not all plants can deal with the seasonal fluctuations and the altitude that we have in Denver, right? In the summertime, it can get hot. Not terribly hot, but it can get up, 90, sometimes over 100 degrees. And that can feel really hot, especially with a high altitude. And in the winters, it can get below freezing, deeply below freezing. You can have snow. And so I remember when I first came out, I was living in the Rockridge area, which is an area of Oakland. And I was walking from my apartment down to the bus that I was taking to go to school in Berkeley. And I remember walking past these yards and seeing things like a palm tree next to a desert succulent, next to maybe a coniferous tree, maybe next to some sort of flower plantings, maybe next to seeing some vines or some British ivy, maybe next to some grass. And in my mind, because I was so used to that limited palette in Colorado, again, plants that are hardy enough to deal with the altitude and also with the seasons, that to me, all that life looked like a giant chaotic mess. I'm like, this is just, it felt off to me because my eyes were so accustomed to just seeing, cottonwood trees, some juniper pines, there's beautiful wildflowers, there's skunk grass, there's beautiful things out in Colorado, aspen trees, all that. But I just couldn't get over like something that you'd normally see in the desert, something that you'd assume is in a tropical landscape, something that you'd assume was up in the mountains, and it's all within like 5 square feet of somebody's yard. And so, now I absolutely love it. Everything, so many things grow out here because the weather is so mild. The weather is incredibly mild out here. Being next to the ocean and having the bay and also the Central Valley keeps this place pretty cool and pretty mild year round. I mean, in the winter, it rarely gets down into the 30s, okay? It rarely gets below freezing. And in the summertime, it rarely gets above really like 70 or 80s. I mean, sometimes we have in the fall a couple, maybe 90, even 100-degree days, but they're rare. They're very rare. And even though weather seems like a given, it's just sort of things out there, I think that has a huge factor on the innovation that's happened out here. I mean, I think of the times that I've been visiting my grandmother in Ardmore, Oklahoma, which is, in the summertime there. It's just hot. It is hot and humid. And basically, your whole goal there is to go from one air-conditioned place into an air-conditioned car and just race past that searing heat, right? I know some people love that. But for me personally, it makes me feel drained, right? Likewise, I have a friend who lives up in Juneau, Alaska, and I've been to visit him several times. It's a beautiful place. I mean, there's water, there's mountains, but they have a ton of rain. It's known as the Arctic rainforest. They get as much rain as you get, and much precipitation as you get in a rainforest, and it's cold. And so, they're working with that. And not only they're working with that, they're working with seasonal fluctuations of light. In the wintertime, they can have like 3 or 4 hours of light during the daytimes. So, the weather patterns and the seasons, the way they play out in other places in the world, can be quite, abrupt and do all sorts of, they can be positive in the sense that it's like, wow, you really get the sense of spring coming on. You really get the sense of what summer, fall, and winter are doing as seasons. And here, it's a less of a variation there. But what that allows us to do is that, we're not busy putting on our snow tires around here unless we're going up into Tahoe or the Sierras, and we're not having to shovel ourselves out of snow. We're not, worried by blizzards. We have our other hazards such as earthquakes, but there's this constant place that's actually, if you think of a conditioned building, it's right around there. It's pleasant. And for me, and one of the theories that I have about why creativity there's been such a proliferation of it here, is it's just simply, but you can kind of work here all year round. You can think about things with your mind not being bogged down by the searing heat, and you also can just enjoy moving about the city, interacting more, right? If in the wintertime, sometimes people become isolated, and that's, some isolation is great. I think some isolation where we're able to reflect and really kind of contemplate the projects we're working on, I think that's great. But too much of it, it kind of saps our energies. We're social creatures. So to be able to move about in the city and enjoy the company of other people and not feel like we have to rush past searing heat or freezing cold allows this place to be, a place, again, full of interactions of all sorts. And I think the weather pattern, the weather is a factor in that. So I'd love to hear about how the weather has affected you in your life and your creative pursuits. If there's been times that, for example, maybe there's some way that I'm not seeing it, that there's a particular type of weather pattern, or maybe even it's like in the snow or the rain, you actually get this sort of inspiration. I'd love to hear about that. And people from different parts of the country or the world, I'd love to hear about the weather affects your ability to create and innovate. It's again, when we have a place where we're not having to fight against the weather, it allows us to sort of just drop into kind of what we do best, which is, and I believe, again, that creativity is a core need of ours, it's a core ability of ours, and therefore, when we're given the tools that we need in order to create, we will be creative, right? If we're encouraged to create, we will be creative. And I think that the weather is one of those factors that lends itself to that. So if you're not on my website right now, go to www.austinhillshaw.com, and please leave a comment below. It's so great to hear what other people are saying and other people's reflections on this. Please share this video if it has any value to you with your friends on Facebook. Love to get this information more out into the world. And again, just I'm grateful personally for the weather that's around here. I get to ride my bike year round, and bike riding is one of the ways in which I get creative insights. Having my heart going, being able to move over large distances and explore the city in that way is one of my favorite things to do in the entire world. So this has been Austin Hill Shaw, founder of Creativity Matters and author of The Shoreline of Wonder, reminding you to connect deeply, to make a difference, and to inspire creativity in others. Thank you so much for joining me.